So for our guest this week, I'm going to be introducing Professor Nick Macklon. He's been the Group Medical Director for the London Women's Clinic, London Sperm Bank and London Egg Bank since 2017. He's internationally recognised gynaecologist and leader in reproductive medicine. He's published many scientific papers and books and is regularly invited to lectures in the UK and abroad. Professor Macklon is co-chief editor of one of the leading scientific journals in reproductive medicine, Reproductive Biomedicine Online. So welcome, it's nice to see you. Can I ask to start off what made you get into artificial reproduction?
You know, it probably has its origins when I was back at medical school as a student. I remember listening to a lecture just about how the hormones worked in women to make sure they only ovulated one egg each month, even though 10 or 20 were growing. And I thought, God, this is very clever. And then I started getting more into the biology as a medical student, getting into gynecology and learning, you know, it's amazing that you can make a human being out of two cells, an egg and a sperm.
Yeah.
So that, and then being involved in obstetrician and delivering babies. And there was one stage where I thought, you know, it would be really nice to do IVF, to create an embryo, put it into the uterus, and then 9 months later, take it out again.
Yeah.
It just seemed a perfect way to spend a career. And the research was so interesting as well.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's a miracle what can be done. It really is.
It really is.
Yeah. From a clinical perspective, who is surrogacy the right option for, and how do you help people make that decision?
Do you know, when surrogacy first emerged, it was felt it was only a very limited value to people, for instance, who were born without a uterus. You know, there was just no other option for them. And surrogacy has given the joy of motherhood to many people through that. But over the years, actually, it's become apparent that it does have broader opportunities. So, of course, people who've been born without a uterus or have had to lose their uterus for surgical reasons or medical reasons or cancer or whatever, surrogacy does provide a route to having people's own baby using their own eggs or donor eggs. But also other medical conditions that perhaps make it unsafe for someone to carry a pregnancy. They have a uterus, but they might have a cardiovascular disease or some other condition that would make the burden of pregnancy on their physiology too great.
Yeah.
This is, of course, a very important indication. Or even in some cases where it becomes dangerous for someone to go through fertility treatment themselves, it would be better to do surrogacy. But increasingly, there's also a recognition that for some people, the psychological process of carrying a pregnancy is also very, very challenging.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, you know, that in the UK, it doesn't have to be a purely medical indication.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody feels, do you know what, I'd love to be a mother, love to be a parent, but I just can't see myself carrying a pregnancy for whatever reason, surrogacy is a route for it.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting because it can be traumatic and for people emotionally, not just physically, definitely. Yeah. So can you walk us through what the IVF process typically looks like for intended parents pursuing surrogacy?
Yes, well, I mean, a lot of people who are pursuing surrogacy will want to create their own embryos with their own eggs and donor sperm or partner sperm, although it is possible, of course, to use donor eggs for that. But let's assume we have somebody who wants to use surrogacy to get pregnant and to use their own eggs. Then what they would then do is go through an IVF cycle. Okay. And what that entails is around about 2 weeks of treatment, starting normally when the period starts. Then there will be about 10 days of injecting a hormone every day, just under the skin, usually into the tummy, which stimulates the ovaries to produce not just one egg that month that's mature, but hopefully more.
Yeah.
5, 10, 15, 20, maybe even more. And that's great because one egg is fine, but it might not fertilize, we might not get it, it might not produce an embryo. So if we can get more eggs, then there's a higher chance we'll have an embryo to use for surrogacy. So around about 10 days of stimulating hormones. Now, after about 5 days of those hormones, we need to start becoming a little bit aware that we don't want those growing follicles and eggs to ovulate before we get our hands on them. So what do? We add in a second medication, which keeps the eggs tucked up safely in the ovary until we go and get them.
Yeah.
So 10 days of stimulation, and after 5 days, there'll be a period of 5 days when perhaps 2 injections are used, stimulating the ovary, stopping the ovulation. Now, during that second week, we might do 2 or 3 scans, internal scans, just to see how the follicles are developing. And once we see that the follicles are at a size where we think the eggs could be almost mature, we'll say, right, we can now plan the date to go in and get those eggs. And then 36 hours before that appointment's made, there's an important timing to do, because we want to give a little trigger injection that mimics what happens in the natural cycle before ovulation, a trigger injection that just completes that maturation. So we give that trigger injection usually quite late at night, maybe even the early hours of this morning. At least we don't. We ask the patient to do it. And then 36 hours later, they'll come in, 34 to 36 hours, come in and have the eggs removed. And we normally do that under sedation, can be done under local anaesthetic as well. A procedure that takes around about 15-20 minutes. And in many ways, it's just like having an internal scan, but attached to the ultrasound probe is a needle that just goes through the top of the vagina into the ovary, and we can aspirate all the follicles, and hopefully we'll find, when we look in that fluid, a lovely group of eggs. And that's basically it, because after that, the embryologists take over, they fertilize the eggs, they create embryos, we grow the embryos for 5 days, so that we can make a good selection of the best embryos to transfer, and that's when the surrogate takes over, because then we transfer the embryo into the surrogate.
So it's a miracle. It really is amazing. I remember having my treatments and on my journeys, and just, it's magical what science can do. And the day of the transfer, I remember looking on the screen, just thinking how miraculous it actually was. And the embryologist brings the embryo into the room, it all goes so quiet.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's amazing, it really is amazing.
It's amazing.
How do success rates for surrogacy related IVF compare to standard IVF, and what factors influence outcomes?
Yeah. So the good news is that the chances of success with surrogacy are the same, or if anything, even better than with standard IVF. Because we've got to remember that the uterus is usually a woman. From a woman, the surrogate will often have had children herself, or have had no history of infertility. So that's a good starting place. The second most important determinant factor will be the quality of the eggs that are used. And that is primarily determined by the age of the patient who's providing the eggs, or indeed an egg donor. So that if you're using eggs from somebody who's 32, 33, the chance of having a term birth is higher than if it's from 41, 42. And that's simply because of the impact of time on egg quality. We have to remember that women are born with all the eggs they're going to have.
Yeah.
And when a girl is born, her eggs are already several months old.
It's crazy,
they've been there since she was about 18 weeks. And right from even before birth, eggs are being lost every month. But a girl is born with normally around about 1 million eggs in the ovaries.
Wow.
And around about 300 or 400 get lost every month through life until they eventually run out about average age of 51.
Wow.
But so the eggs are running out, but also they're getting older, like we all are. and time does affect the quality of those eggs. So that is the primary determinant. Other factors such as lifestyle, things like that, people do get worried about, and it is good to be fit and healthy if you can, but you can only do so much by focusing on supplements and things like that, which can be very expensive. So as long as you're having a good diet, preferably a Mediterranean one, because we know that's full of goodies for fertility.
Excuse for a holiday.
Yes, that's right. And taking your vitamin D and your folate, then that's better. Don't smoke.
Yes.
That's the big no-no.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. What role does embryo quality play, and how do you counsel families when embryo creation doesn't go as hoped?
Yes, one of the challenges we have as humans is that a lot of the embryos we make are not very good quality, and you think, well, why is that the case? And biologists think that it's probably a good thing that that's the case, otherwise women would be pregnant the whole time, and we have to focus so much on bringing up one child. It takes a lot of time. So by the basic biology is such that embryos aren't always great quality. Now the trouble is that in a setting like IVF, and particularly surrogacy, where the stakes are high and everybody's waiting to see this embryo, it becomes very disappointing when an embryo isn't quite there. But it is hugely important, because the quality of the embryo will determine not only the chance of pregnancy succeeding, but also the chance of a baby being born healthy. Of course, what we want. And sometimes when that embryo isn't quite right, it will still be okay to implant, but nature didn't really intend a baby to be born because there'd be problems and then a miscarriage arises.
Yeah.
So embryo quality is the primary determinant, A, of the chance of successful implantation, and secondly, of avoiding a miscarriage and going to term.
Yeah.
Now, if the results are not great and the embryos don't look good, then sometimes that can just be a chance event. It's just been a batch of eggs that came through that month that weren't ideal, and nature just didn't have a golden egg there. An embryo. But the next month it can change. You know? So I think it's always important to stay positive. Rarely we'll find a situation where, look, we think that we're never going to get a good embryo here, in which case we have to have an honest conversation. Should we be doing egg donation or something? And we will. But in many cases, it's a matter of keeping calm and carrying on, and hopefully we'll get there.
No, I like that. I was told difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations.
That's right, they do.
Yes. How does your clinic work alongside surrogacy agencies and the legal professionals?
So our role as a clinic is very well defined as to what we can and what we can't do. And what we cannot do is recruit surrogates, find surrogates. Our role is to work with the agencies who help couples to find surrogates and to meet with surrogates within the restrictions of the law, which are very clear in the UK. And once that has been, a surrogate has been identified, we have a role, A, to make sure that the indication is right, of course, to do this, but secondly, to make sure that everyone is fully understanding the implications of what they're about to do and the challenges. But perhaps the most important, apart from obviously carrying out the treatment, is making sure the surrogate is medically fit. Medically fit for herself to be able to carry a pregnancy without excessive risk for her, and secondly, medically fit to carry a pregnancy so that the couple who want to have a baby have got a good chance of having that baby at the end. So that is an important role for me as a doctor, that I will meet with surrogates and make a clinical assessment as to whether or not it's appropriate for them to act in that.
Thank you. And what are the most common medical misconceptions about surrogacy you encounter? I don't know about you, but I come across so much lack of education around it. I don't know what you come across.
Well, I think that the most important one that I feel sad about is the fact there are many people out there who try and paint surrogates as being victims of their decision, or victims of exploitation. I know from having worked in this field for a long, long time that surrogates, particularly in the UK, in a very safe regulatory environment, very protective, are there because they genuinely want to help people.
It's a privilege.
It's a privilege. They enjoy it. It gives them a lot of satisfaction, and you know, they actually enjoy helping people who otherwise couldn't have a family, and it's very touching. You know, having looked after couples, gay couples, there's others who try. The relationship that they form with the surrogates is a very special one. The surrogate is not the mother of the baby, but is a very important person in the life of them, and that is a very fulfilling role. So I think that, to me, is the one that saddens me most. I suppose other ones are a little bit more medical. You know, some people feel, well, if we get a baby through a surrogate, it won't be our baby. It'll come out looking different than it would, and that's not the case, because the baby is determined primarily by the genes. And if you're producing the egg or using donor egg or donor sperm, that's going to be what shapes how the baby looks. So you should feel very comfortable, if using a surrogate, that the baby that emerges is yours. And I think that's probably the other main one. No, I totally agree. As a surrogate myself, I've had 4 surrogate babies, and it's been a privilege on every single one. It's like the ultimate babysitting, isn't it? It really is. So, how do you support the mental and emotional well-being of patients alongside the clinical side of the journey? It's really important. It's something that we remind ourselves of every day at work, because you can imagine that for those of us that work in this field, it's the day job, isn't it? We go to work every day and we're involved in this. But I think it's true of all my colleagues that every day we do feel privileged to do what we do, and we know that this is a life event for people. And also, the stakes are high, and it's hugely psychologically distressing. I mean, the advances we've made over the years in how we do fertility treatment have been brilliant, not only in improving the chance of success, but it's so much easier than it used to be. Taking drugs for weeks and weeks and feeling ill and being in the gynae ward for weeks and weeks, that's all gone. It's pretty compatible with a busy lifestyle to go through this. But it's the ups and downs of it. You know, anybody who's going through will know that you get moments of excitement, good news, bad news, and they come one after the other, and it becomes quite exhausting.
It's the ultimate high, the ultimate low.
People call it a roller coaster.
Yes.
It is. And it's quite exhausting. And therefore, we all have a role in providing support for that. And it comes down, I think, primarily to understanding and acknowledging and being aware that our patients are going through that every day. And I always believe that, you know, we have wonderful counsellors who have a role. And they really are brilliant, and they can provide best support. But it's the people that are in touch with patients every day, our nurses, doctors, embryologists, HCAs, who are the real rock for our patients alongside their relationship. And it's very important that we're always empathic and always understanding. Everyone has a bad day. We all do. Patients can have it too, and we have to understand that. And it's important for us as professionals that we don't take that personally.
No, of course,
you know? This is something that we're there to help with. And it's something that's very important at London Women's Clinic, that we remind ourselves of that all the time.
I definitely felt very supported at London Women's Clinic on my journey, so 100%. You know, as you said, it's the ultimate roller coaster. I even experienced an ectopic pregnancy on one of my journeys. But the support I got was second to none. It was amazing. And, you know, it is the ultimate high. Some days are full of highs and great days, and other days are full of heartbreak. You know, it really is. But there's a song, The Climb, and I feel that song should have been written for the fertility world, because it really is like, you know, the climb to get there. It really is.
No, it is.
And the final question is, what would you say to someone who is apprehensive about the medical side? How do you help them feel prepared?
I think information is key. But it's also important people get the right information. I'm a little concerned, as most of my colleagues are, that, you know, the rise of AI, although it has lots of benefits, when people go online to get information and press the AI button, what AI is doing is scraping the internet for anything out there, and it doesn't do any assessment of what's right and what's wrong. So I would say yes, it's right to try and inform yourself about the background, but don't give yourself that responsibility to do your research and have it right. That's what you're seeing the doctor and the nurses to do. They will help you with that. It's more, I think, around about recognizing that this is going to be a challenging, difficult time. It's going to have its ups and downs. It's going to have moments of great joy and excitement, but also other moments. And to give yourself space and allow yourself to feel those things. A lot of people come into fertility treatment, as we all know, life is so busy, there's lots going on at work, lots in the relationship, there's a little pocket of time and energy I'm going to give this project, and it requires more than that. So do try and give yourself that space, and we often say be kind to yourself, and I think that is probably the main preparation. Yes, you know, eat a Mediterranean diet, eat folate, but those things are not going to determine whether you succeed or not. So take that pressure off that you've done the wrong thing or the right thing. We're going to take over. That's what we're here for. And we're going to help you as best we can.
Trust in the professionals.
I think it's a good thing to do.
Definitely. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I'm sure so many people would have found this helpful and beneficial.
Great pleasure.
And it's great to break the stigma.
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you. Take care.